Frog metamorphosis. In most species of animals, embryonic development leads to a larval stage with characteristic difference from those of adult organisms. Example is Pluteus larvae of sea urchin, caterpillar larvae of butterflies. During metamorphosis, developmental processes are reactivated by certain hormones. In frog tadpole, metamorphosis causes the developmental maturation where the tadpole, which is a free swimming form, is converted to a terrestrial adult. Thus, metamorphosis is often a time of dramatic developmental change affecting the entire organism. The aquatic organism is converted to a terrestrial organism, and this occurs in urodeles and anurans. And regressive changes and constructive process, both retrogressive changes as well as constructive or new changes also occurs during the process of metamorphosis. Mainly the metamorphosis in frog is known as retrogressive metamorphosis because most of the characters that is present in tadpole larval form that disappears when the tadpole converts into an adult frog. Hence, the process of metamorphosis is known as retrogressive metamorphosis in frog. The drastic changes that occurs are means of locomotion. Paddle tail, which is actually used by the tadpole for swimming and balancing, that recedes. Cartilaginous skull is replaced by horny teeth are replaced. Tongue muscle develops. The skull is actually replaced. The cartilaginous skull is replaced by bony structures, and the horny teeth, they are replaced where they are mostly absent in upper jaw, and then tongue muscles develop. Large intestine that becomes shortened, that shortens because it is completely omnivorous form. And the gills which are characteristic feature of tadpole, that actually there's a retrogressive behavior or regression occurs whereby the gills are lost. And lungs completely develop because respiratory structure, the gills change its respiratory structure and lungs take charge as respiratory structure. Sensory appendages changes too as the lateral line system of tadpole degenerates and eyes and ear undergo further differentiation. The middle ear and eyelids develop. The nervous system undergoes dramatic changes where in anuran metamorphosis, the movement of eyes forward from the original lateral position as found in tadpole, that occurs whereby bulging eyes are formed anterior. Some larval neurons in tadpole jaw switch their allegiances from larval muscle to newly formed adult muscle. Other neurons innervating the tongue first form synapse during metamorphosis. The biochemical changes pigment in tadpoles. The major retinal pigment is porphyropsin. It changes to rhodopsin. Hemoglobin, adult hemoglobin binds oxygen more slowly than the larval form, which binds swiftly. Then liver enzymes change. Tadpoles are ammonotelic, wherein they excrete ammonia that gets converted to frogs, which are ureotelic. When it becomes a ureotelic form, the urea cycle enzymes are also locomotory. The larval form, the tadpole, it is aquatic and it possesses tail fins. And adult, they are terrestrial tailless tetrapod where the tail degenerates. The tail degenerates in adult. Respiratory system, gills, skin, lungs. That's it. That is later stages of tadpole. Lungs take over means of respiration. The complete gills disappear. In adult, skin, lungs and adult hemoglobins are seen whereas in tadpole, larval hemoglobins are seen where oxygen attaches swiftly to the hemoglobin. Circulatory system, aortic arch is there, aorta is there, anterior, posterior and common jugular veins are there. And adult also possess carotid arch, systemic arch as well as cardinal veins are present. Nutritional, tadpole is purely herbivorous form with long spiral gut, intestinal symbionts, small mouth, horny jaws and labial teeth, whereas adult it is carnivorous, so the gut becomes short. Then proteases, large mouth with long tongue, long sticky tongue appear. Lack of nictitating membrane, porphyropsin as well as presence of lateral line system and Morphological neurons are present in larval form. Whereas in adult it is development of ocular muscles, nictitating membrane, rhodopsin is there, loss of lateral lens system which is characteristic feature of larval form, degeneration of Morphological neurons, and the tympanic membrane appears in adult form. Excretory system, they are largely monotelic, whereas adult form they are completely ureotelic forms. And the skin, thin bilayered epidermis with thin dermis, no mucous glands or granular glands are present, whereas in adults stratified squamous epidermis with adult keratins are found, as well as well developed dermis that contains mucous glands and granular glands secreting antimicrobial peptides. Hormonal control is also observed in tadpole. Metamorphic changes of frogs are all brought about by secretion of the hormones thyroxine and triiodothyronine, which is also known as T3. Of this, T3 is considered the important characteristic feature that bring about the changes in conversion of tadpole to adult. Once the eggs become fertilized in water, the larva hatches out after a couple of weeks and the tadpole is formed. The newly hatched larva is known as tadpole, which is limbless. There is no limb, mouthless creatures with prominent head and fusiform body with short laterally compressed tail. Two pairs of branched external gills project from the sides of the head. Shortly afterwards, a third pair of external gill also appears. An alimentary canal develops which is herbivorous in nature and which extends throughout the whole body of the organism. And small mouth provided with horny jaw appears, and the young tadpole feeds on aquatic vegetation. And the sucker, which produces a sticky slime for attachment to other objects, gradually they disappear when it becomes an adult. Gills are present, and these gills in the course of development the gills are covered by operculum. Operculum is formed from two sides and they overlap each other, and the gills degenerate within the this covering. And hind limbs as well as the forelimbs and hind limbs appear as small buds. They grow rapidly and become well developed. It's a hind limb that develops first, followed by the forelimb. They come out breaking the forelimbs, they come out breaking the operculum. The lungs develop from the pharynx, and the internal gills begin to degenerate once the lungs develop. The tadpole stops feeding when it is in the process under the process of metamorphosis. The mouth becomes wider, tongue increases in size, teeth appear, eyes become larger, and the limbs grow in size, whereas the intestine becomes shorter, tail also shortens, and the tail is completely absorbed, whereas the herbivorous tadpole gets changed to a omnivorous adult. The various organs of the body respond differently to hormonal stimulation. Degeneration of tail structure, the regression of tail is brought about by apoptosis and occurs in 4 stages. Protein synthesis decreases, increase in concentration of digestive enzymes that brings about degeneration of the tail, concentration of lysosomal protease rise, as well as cell death occurs that brings about complete degeneration of tail. This is how tail is lost in adult frog. And the response of thyroid hormone is specific to few regions of the body. There's always a coordination of developmental change that occurs. Tail should not degenerate until limbs are developed. In the same manner, the gills degenerate only once when the lungs develop completely. Have you ever thought, what if tadpoles are deprived of thyroid hormones or given higher concentration of thyroid hormones? You have learned this when you have studied about salamander. Just think about it.